Hello everybody and welcome back to week number 2 of stage 2 of the Quake Pro League, where my name is Ketchup and I'm joined by the always wonderful Flea on the desk. Our next matchup is going to be the two newcomers to Quake Pro League in the Americas, dooi and GNiK.
Yeah.
Interesting matchup to see, I guess, out of the two of them, who's kind of a little bit that next step ahead. I think they have different backgrounds in Quake Champions and different levels of success.
Right.
Definitely different levels of experience, which is what I'm keeping my eyes on.
Yeah, that's going to be a very important factor. dooi, of course, he's got quite a bit of experience, right? He goes back way towards the beginning of the Quake Champions scene in total, right? Whereas GNiK is only a relatively recent player to make it into the top rankings. But then, on the other hand, if we look at their recent match history, they haven't played on LAN, right? So they didn't get to face off at QuakeCon, nor did they end up meeting in the brackets in ESL Italy. But instead, what are we seeing right here is that in the Challenger League, it's actually been GNiK who won 3 out of the 4 matches, despite being the player with less experience.
But that's the new element, right, is online.
Yeah.
Quake Pro League is played online up until each LAN qualifier, and if your comfort zone is the online background, the LAN experience only really starts to matter once you've qualified for the LAN. And obviously GNiK was able to, hence he was there, hence he's here now. But dooi, he's had quite the interesting journey to me, where there was a substantial gap when dooi wasn't really competing in Quake Champions, right? He's now going into the Quake Pro League kind of like hungry again. You know, he's now has this desire to compete and this desire to get more involved than he was before. And the time limit duel, something that he didn't really play during his time in Quake Champions before, when it was round-based, now time limit is the new hotness.
Yeah.
It's something he's had to get used to playing it.
I also love dooi's Western team. It's amazing. I don't know why it suits him so well, but it absolutely does.
There are some things you just can't explain.
Nah, absolutely.
But he's known for playing a very, very defensive style.
Yeah.
And I kind of, we spoke to him at ESL Italy, and we
Right.
talked to him about the slowness of his play, and we're like, you were playing exceptionally slow, especially actually when he had Nyx in his arsenal as well. And his answer really was just, because hasn't played on LAN in quite a while, he's in a position where he's like, if I wasn't 100% convinced I was going to win a fight or win something, he just wouldn't even bother going in. He didn't want to take any risks at all, because he wasn't as confident in his own decision making then as he used to be, because he had so much more constant tournaments to take part in and that, and he was an active competitor.
Right.
And now he's been thrown straight back into the fray. We're going to have to see what his shape is going to look like compared to the other best of Americas. GNiK is up next, and GNiK is the online warrior, absolutely.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's just talent. GNiK is a talented player, very fearless, I think you could definitely say, when his general demeanour, when you have a chat with him, when you speak to him offline, he's very confident about basically anyone he plays. So yeah, I'm fine, I'm not worried. And you can see that in his gameplay. He goes into it with a fresh mind, and I don't think he's going to really doubt any of his decisions if he doesn't fear anyone, right?
Yeah.
And he has been known to sometimes toy with people when he plays them in duel as well. My man just has fun with Quake Champions.
Absolutely. And I also remember, or at least I seem to remember, way back at QuakeCon, because even though GNiK wasn't like part of the Pro League at that point, so he didn't play in the main tournament, he was around and he did get some playtime in with some of the players there. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Hron who said that GNiK is a player to watch out for. He is going to be big. He's going to make some waves happen in the pro scene, and so far, I mean, he absolutely has.
He's pretty much done everything he can do as a upcoming player in Quake Pro League so far.
Yeah.
When you weren't part of the, I think, initial list of Quake Pro League competitors, you had no choice, but you had to play in challenges.
Yeah.
You had to win your way through. GNiK was the first player of all 4 relegation match players that actually officially qualified himself and cemented his spot. He was so dominant in the Americas, he was without question the first person to lock himself in.
Yeah.
So, made it all the way through, made his way into Quake Pro League, and now he has the opportunity to just ascend beyond and just try and take each LAN as it comes. He's in a great position, has to see how he fares against dooi today. Definitely going to be a clash of styles, I think, especially seeing as our vetoes coming up next. We can see the picks and bans, and I really want to highlight that first Blood Covenant pick, dooi selecting that one. But an interesting champion choice where, in return, GNiK is now going in with the Visor. Quite a direct answer for Nyx on this map. It allows dooi to be nice and defensive, as he's well known of playing, but at the same time, this Visor pick in the mind of someone like GNiK, who's very kind of like, constantly preying on you, that piercing sight's going to make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I mean, Visor's probably the hardest counter for NiK's in the entire game, but still, GNiK is gotta have to be aware and play a cautious game, because as we saw in Italy, dooi has absolutely no problems waiting 9 minutes, 10 minutes without a single frag, right? He will just play his defensive game, and just as what you were saying earlier, if he doesn't feel like he's in a good position to take and win the fight, he'll just be like, you know what? I'll see in 30 seconds, I'll see in a minute. Whenever the time is right, that's when I will strike. So GNiK, this might be more of a marathon than a sprint, and I hope that he's ready for that.
Molten Fool's up next. Ranger versus Ison, finishing things up with Corrupted Keep. Strog, I've seen GNiK use Strog before, it's very, very scary indeed. And then all-out damage, thanks to Death Knight.
Yeah.
dooi was one of those first players originally in Quake Champions that was just not afraid to embrace the champion aspect of Quake, and because Quake Champions was pretty much his breakout game, similar to like a Razy over here or a Vengur over here in this part of the world, doi's entire thing was Quake Champions.
Right.
And he went into the game with like, I'm going to relish the champions, I'm going to take each matchup differently because the game has to be played differently depending on which champion you're selecting.
Yeah.
And abilities, he was the phrase, the dooi orb.
Absolutely, I was just about to mention it. We're seeing not only the Death Knight on the final map, but on Molten Falls, we're actually seeing the Ranger with the orb. And dooi, as you just mentioned, he was one of the players who was known for having an incredibly deadly orb. And he was playing as Ranger. Shout out to dooi, always. But yeah, as you were saying, near the start of the Quake Champions life cycles, there were quite a few pros who were very reluctant to adopt the abilities, right? Especially the damage dealing ones, and they just sought for, what is the closest I can get to the classic Quake experience that I'm so familiar with after all these years. But then some others, like dooi, they found a lot of success just breaking out of that box and saying, I'm gonna focus on the abilities and make them work in my favor. And with that being said, we're about to jump into the very first map between these two players. We've got dooi, we've got GNiK. Catch up, take it away.
An interesting matchup, for sure. NiK's versus Visor on Blood Covenant. I think we've seen this so many times. What a classic champion matchup this one is. NiK's has that automatic defensive play, thanks to the fact that she's a bit harder to hit than normal, plus she has that trump card of the Ghost Walk and then Visor's Piercing Sight. It depends on how the player tries to use it. We sometimes see it trying to gauge some immediate information. For example, GNiK knows that fresh off the spawn, doi's not going to be fully locked and loaded yet, so maybe we can use Piercing Sight to get that initial information, find out where dooi is, and then maybe we can start to establish. As this map progresses, it's likely that GNiK is then going to start changing his use of Piercing Sight. Like, he might not use it right now. He might try and get some damage to force it out. Yeah. It looks like in this case, actually, no, he did land it immediately, and it did give dooi that escape plan. It looked like a fake first, but then he immediately popped it afterwards, so...
Oh, nice, dooi. Perfect read of his opponent. And he finds that this might be the time to strike. Will chase for more damage, but won't find it. And I must say, right within the first 10 seconds of the game, I feel like we could already tell that this might be a slow one. Because dooi was making his way over to Heavy. He heard GNiK around the corner. And what did he do? Even though he had the speed to his name, he did have the Ghost Walk ready. He just turned to the right and went onto the Heavy nail gun. Just being like, you know what? I'm not even going to risk it with the Ghost Walk. So we might see a very cautious game indeed. GNiK finally dealing some damage of his own, but it's still dooi who I think has done most.
Almost had the chance to hit another rail, but a split second too late. As he goes round now, Ghost Walk's going to get popped. But again, because GNiK, he's using the Piercing Sight to get initial information, and he's not using it as a direct counter to NiK's. Definitely not saying that's a mistake. It's just when you play Visor on this map versus NiK's, there are kind of like two minds, I think. Some players only exclusively save it, and they use it as a punishment tool to almost secure a frag on a NiK's that's trying to run away. And in GNiK's case, he's just trying to get constant information, and he's not necessarily worried about constantly chasing down the Ghost Walk. He just wants information first.
Yeah. GNiK actually had a really good opportunity to get full control earlier, but he didn't have the timing, and so he left a few seconds before Heavy was about to spawn, and that allowed dooi to get himself on a pretty decent 175 stack right now, which works well in his favor, especially considering that he is a smaller, squishier champion as opposed to the medium-sized Visor.
Would have been quite an important rail to hit just to undo the work of that Mega. But for another time, this is dooi style. This is dooi through and through. He's not going to take risks. He's going to be very, very reserved. GNiK getting the tribal up there. I feel like that actually might be confirmation for dooi that maybe the piercing sight was used again, even if he didn't hear the activation. That shot just right up there where he just so happens to be, I mean, that's quite a prediction to make if it's wrong.
dooi whiffing and missing a lot of rails, unfortunately. I feel like he could have been in a whole lot better of a shape than he is right now, even though he's absolutely not looking bad right now. He's got the heavy to his name, he's got a pretty decent base stack to work with, he's got the Ghost Walk, and he's very content just setting himself up around rail, around rockets, and just pushing and keeping his opponent at bay.
See the downtime. Cooldown applied for piercing sight for another time because GNiK has that initial information and missed rail again, but as long as the damage isn't being returned, you're not really being punished for those missed rails.
Yeah.
So dooi breathing space for now. If he picks up this heavy, he might be able to disengage as well thanks to piercing sight being gone, but it looks like GNiK's actually going to completely try and go for somewhat of a trade-off, and the Mega gets taken instead.
Very little of a delay between the two items, hardly enough to get from one to the other, so it looks like we're going to be continuing this split rotation, right? dooi just continuing to take the heavy, whereas it will be GNiK that sits on the mega health, and both just waiting for an opportunity, waiting for that one good rail to hit that gives them an edge over their opponent so they can push in and make something happen.
GNiK catches him off guard, but again, thanks to Ghost Walk, it's because they're constantly off rhythm with each other's abilities. It's what's causing this constant stalemate. Where GNiK, he's getting the opening damage because he knows where dooi is, because he's used piercing sight, but then at the same time, it's gone, and then dooi has Ghost Walk, so when a fight goes wrong, you can just get out of there straight away.
Yep.
You wonder which is going to be the first of the two players to break this cycle, because it feels like this map has kind of gone down the exact same way for all of near 5 minutes at this point.
Yeah, GNiK had somewhat of an opportunity right there, but dooi was able to evade him and get that Ghost Walk right back up. And right now, of course, dooi, he still has that get out of jail free card available to him. So whenever dooi finds him in a bad situation, he still can get out of it pretty easily. And that's essentially how you have to play Nyx, right? You have to find her, trap her, do a lot of damage, force her into using the Ghost Walk so that next time around, in the following 30 seconds, you might be better placed to finally take her down. And that's a good rocket. dooi not having to use the Ghost Walk just yet. GNiK has to hit a little harder. There we go.
And that's a scary one.
Yep.
dooi hasn't been forced to use the Ghost Walk yet, but he's so weak it might not even matter. Mega's going to come up. Dewey's in position. He has to get that Mega, get in and get out. Try and prevent getting hit by a rail. GNiK, and now finally uses the piercing sight as a counter. But I think doooi's going to be fearful of it. I almost half think he heard it as he ran past him.
Oh,
wow.
Pretty nice tribal. Yep. I was about to say that GNiK, even though haven't had forced out, the Ghost Walk still not in that good of a shape to chase him down, because dooi managed to do quite a bit of damage to GNiK as well. But that tribal, that might change things a little bit. Unfortunately for GNiK, dooi just a few seconds away from having the invisibility once again. And we're back to another rotation of trying to force it out.
Yeah, look at the abilities. They've both come back at pretty much the exact same time. You know that doooi's not going to pop it until it's necessary. He's not going to use it to attack. But GNiK has gone back into using that piercing sight to get that initial information. It's why he hit that initial rocket. I feel like dooi once more might be partly aware of that. Rail isn't going to quite hit its mark. GNiK still a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh.
dooi is going to give him what he's looking for. That defensive nail straight through the teleporter hurts him so much. And it forces dooi to go for the trade. Force the trade, Mega to heavy. GNiK now sitting with the heavy in hand. Piercing sights available. No Ghost Walk as well.
I think you might have heard it, or just picked up on it being used and decided not to go any further, knowing that his opponent knew exactly where he was at. And I feel like this drawn-out type of play really does favor dooi in the end, because all he needs is to get one good encounter where he does the damage and then can finish it off, right? Because GNiK, even when he manages to put himself in that excellent position, dooi still has the Ghost Walk. And obviously, GNiK doesn't have the same kind of escapability, not the same maneuverability, and he'll be much more easy to trap.
This has very much been a map of dooi controlling the pace of it.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of who has control, we're kind of ignoring the rotation of the items because that's been pretty even at the same time as well. They've been kind of really conceding each other's items, and it's been dooi playing this runaway game where it is absolutely GNiK having to play a game of chase. And the reason that's working so well is because if dooi does finally manage to secure a frag, and then he continues to do this when he has the lead, and then you're forced into being more predictable and making some mistakes because you haven't got time anymore. I mean, every time we watch dooi play on this map, it's the same way. It goes the same way every time.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's literally playing for just one frag. His objective is to get one frag and that's it.
Oh.
But Piercing Sight, thank you very much. Piercing Sight's finally going to give him some of that huge entry damage. Looking for it.
This is good for GNiK. Because so far we actually have seen dooi establish quite a bit of control in the last 2 rotations. I think the last 2 or 3 item cycles have all gone to dooi. So it's great for GNiK to finally be able to break it. A minute and a half left before we move into overtime.
It's kind of a surprise to see that GNiK didn't collect those hourglasses as he's jumping down.
Yeah.
As he was on the way to light. I know that is wasting, like, you know, some precious seconds for sure, but...
Because it's not so much about you getting the hourglasses, it's just as important about, denying it to your opponent. Because Nyx is a champion who so relies on her ability. If she doesn't have it, she's very weak, can go down so quickly. So she really needs that Ghost Walk, and therefore GNiK has to work on denying the hourglasses. Here we go. Some good rails. Oh, I clenched right there.
Oh! Goes in for some rocket damage, but it's not really enough to worry about. We might see him jump down. GNiK missing the rail. He had the right idea, but obviously very worried about giving up an angle himself. He just had to make sure he had an angle, but not giving up too much room. One of those very tricky exchanges to have, but the rail's good. GNiK in grave danger at this stage. 35 HP and that's it. Has to run away and try and get some extra stack. Piercing Sight used just to try and save himself. dooi going full speed ahead, but thanks to the Piercing Sight, the defensive rocket pushes dooi away a little bit. It has given him the heavy, which might have even been the main objective. But we're absolutely going sudden death. Oh no.
Click,
indeed. That's a click you don't want to hear. Not when there's 10 seconds left.
That could have gone so wrong for GNiK.
Don't.
He absolutely got a little lucky right there, because if a dooi had landed one more shot, that would have been the end. But look at that, the rockets are so good! Oh! I almost thought that was gonna hit. He's behind you! GNiK looking completely the wrong way. dooi doesn't have the Ghost Walk! Click again!
His muscle memory kicked in! He wanted it so bad! Oh no!
What?
Flee! Flee! He had no rails!
Oh!
He tried. I mean, every ounce of his being right there was like, he's used the jump pad. If you're a Quake player and you hear the jump pad, what do? You get your rail out.
Absolutely.
And it's like, just in the heat of the moment, his brain was like, jump pad, rail button, click.
And the worst thing is that we heard it click just moments before that as well. The click came out, he hadn't managed to secure more ammunition, and then... the kill shot. dooi did not have the Ghost Walk, was stuck on a set trajectory, and then GNiK can't finish it off, and then he stays around being railable, trying to do the LG damage, aiming upwards, very difficult angle, and dooi lands the shot.
I think that's one of the most tragic map losses we've ever seen in the Quake Pro League.
It could very well
I truly think that's one of the hardest. We have some replays, and I have no doubt we captured that, because, I mean, it was like pretty much the only frag that we saw the entire map, which is dooi style. It was... I feel like GNiK did everything he could to really, like, counter this strategy in this matchup. If you want to counter Nyx, you play Visor. And you have the Piercing Sight as that kind of extra piece of utility. This was the moment, this is where it all went wrong. GNiK had some beautiful opening damage, looking for a shot, and this was the moment. dooi gets knocked up. Click. That was it. if he just had one rail, if he had one singular rail left, that would have been the end of the map. Look how little damage he was even able to do here.
Yeah. Pretty close when it comes to item pickups, but yeah, look at that 675 damage. I can't remember a single other game with that low of a damage count in the Quake Pro League. 11% accuracy as well. That just comes to show how difficult it is to land an evasive Nyx. Just plays a defensive game and holds her ground.
It was this constant game of GNiK. There is no real taking away that there definitely were quite a lot of missed shots in that map, but part of it's like, I mean, can you blame it? Did you see the I guess the evasiveness of how dooi was approaching Nyx? Like that, I feel like we're going to see that so much over the course of Quake Pro League. If it's in play, dooi on Blood Covenant with Nyx, there's a potential that this one combination is going to run quite a nasty tear on people, because it's clearly something that is like doooi's bread and butter, and he's sticking to it because we saw it in Italy as well. We saw it put into absolute perfect practice today. And the game of one frag, that's a brave choice. You know, playing for one frag alone is no easy feat, because that just as easily could go wrong for you. Just one mistake that you make, and now you're one frag down. And now they're running away from you, and you've spent 8 minutes trying to get one frag. So,
especially when you're playing Nyx, right? Squishy champion, you respawn with next to no stack to your name, so if you've got to make a frag happen of the respawn, she really isn't a very good champion to make do with. So very risky plays indeed, but looks like this time around it did pay off. I feel like there were a few situations in which GNiK really had an opportunity to get a frag or make something happen, not counting that very final one. But of course, hindsight is 2020, especially when you're casting and you've got the X-ray, so we can't blame GNiK at all. That was just perfectly played from dooi, and GNiK just didn't find the opportunities.
When you completely ignore and negate the fact that he didn't have any rails, he did the right thing.
Yeah.
He chased it down, he found his mark, he reacted accordingly to punish the jump pad. It's just that one small detail of having rails to actually use was not there. But that said, it's a new day. It's going to be dooi versus GNiK again. Map number 2, Molten Falls. See if we can spot some of those hashtag dooi orbs.
Yeah.
Well, right, actually, make sure you guys follow Quake Pro League, hashtag Quake Pro League on social media. Let us know what you think. And let us know what player you want to win the set. How about that? I'm really curious to see who wants either dooi or GNiK, actually. The two new bloods.
Both of them must have quite a few fans, right? dooi, of course, since he's going back so far into the Quake Pro League, but GNiK has really proven his own worth in the Challenger, so both of them should have a substantial number of supporters. But looking at the map at hand, a very big delay between the two major items. Mega was delayed for an enormous amount, and GNiK is just gonna push in with the turret right away, scare off his opponent, and actually just go for the small armor first.
Deny the armor before you get the heavy. I like that little bit of optimization.
Yeah, you can't burn off 75 extra points of armor to deny a small one, but you can do it in the other way around.
I'm sure someone out there has done that at one point. Whether it's the right thing to do remains to be seen, but...
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I actually like that choice, just in case. That would have been a beautiful hook line and sinker frag if he got it, but dooi doing what he does best and actually risks killing himself. Orbs into the fray and does no damage and takes so much. Forced to retreat, and again he's going to have to give up that heavy.
Orb falling a little short for him in that situation, actually. GNiK has the better positioning for Mega, and it looks like dooi has no plans of even contesting. He's going to continue his passive playstyle into Molten Falls, even though this time around he's got so much less escapability, so GNiK has all the odds in his favor to actually find and catch dooi off guard.
What I'm loving about the passiveness that dooi plays is his general mobility. He's picking his movement spots intelligently too, in the way that if he knows there's a corridor with a conceivable rail angle, but if you just hug the left-hand side of this jump patch, it's hard. Like right there.
Yeah.
He tried to hit the rail on the way up, but he was sticking to the left, so he almost like completely hid his own model. It's a passive level of play, while at the same time, he's really giving GNiK very little to work with.
I'm liking the GNiK turret plays as well, though. He isn't just holding on to the turret, but he's placing them down pretty strategically, just throwing it out before he goes onto the Mega, right? Putting the turret up at rockets, so that you've essentially got a sentry, an alarm system. If your opponent is going to make an appearance over on that side of the map, you know exactly where he's going to be, and probably get a little bit of damage off as well. So GNiK utilizing the turret effectively so far, but we're almost 3 minutes in and no frags yet.
No, this is definitely a map of GNiK having all control and dooi conceding it, very, very clearly giving it up. He's not there, he's probably there for a reason. He's just happy for GNiK to take control. That, to me, spells confidence in his orbs, personally.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a fight that's going to break out, and dooi's confident in his ability to burst, that's just an element of burst that Ison's not going to have. And they're very similar stacks too, so does jump down, gets caught off guard, and the orb just to say, hey man, respect it.
Although GNiK should not sit on this situation for too long. He had control for almost 3 entire minutes, but right now dooi managed to steal a Mega, right? And if you are in control for too long without being able to do much, just the odds of it going wrong keep on increasing drastically, because all it takes for your opponent is to land just like that, a rocket into a rail, and he's actually going back! dooi double backing on that as well, and there we go. GNiK 3.5 minutes into control, gone like that.
I think if the rail didn't kill him, the suicide would have on that pillar as well, by the way, considering he hit the wall and then immediately got railed. So that was just a bit of an unfortunate fumble, but a beautiful play from dooi. His passiveness, getting almost GNiK too comfortable, way too comfortable.
I honestly don't think either player was expecting the other to be here. This could be an interesting situation. GNiK back turned, and dooi is gonna make the orb count. There we see it, dooi's orb getting him the second frag on the scoreboard. Oh, GNiK was just a little bit too passive, it seemed like.
Beautiful choice from dooi to swap to the nail gun, though. He knows if he rails, that would have been a terrible idea, because even if he railed the turret, GNiK would be able to chase it down and punish the cooldown. That turret was almost a, go on, pull the trigger, full speed ahead. dooi is going to get another frag, and that 3.5 minutes of control has fallen to pieces. It's now dooi in a good position. Not very strong, mind you. He needs to be very careful, get himself some armor if it's available. Doesn't look like there's any so far, but he has the lead, and that's what matters right now.
And now, even though he won't be able to contest for Mega, or wait, will he? What? GNiK might not have had the timing. And that's why he backed up, and now one rail. Can dooi find some more damage? Won't land the second, and actually the rocket not half bad either. This is a little bit of an awkward fight. Mega is up just around the corner, neither player really with the weaponry to make that fight happen. Here we go, dooi taking a lot of LG damage. GNiK, is he going to push in? Takes a rail for his trouble. That was an excellent shot.
You can definitely see the trickiness in that fight that took place, because it was a rocket fight, right? Neither player trying to give up too much of their angle, while at the same time being in a position to land it. Watch out for the LG, GNiK! Almost at risk of being ring out right there, but does that even matter with how weak he currently is? We're long past that 5-minute warning, by the way. dooi, that passive style that he's just so well known for. I almost feel like he's more passive now than he ever was. Like, this is an evolution of dooi.
I honestly would agree, and I feel like if he can tell that it's working, we're not going to see him revert back to a more aggressive.
Don't fix it,
Absolutely.
my friend.
If he can take down players like GNiK, I mean, so far we're looking at a 1-0, could very well end up being a 3-0 as well. If this kind of stuff is working for dooi, why would he change it? Why would he start playing more aggressively? Neither rail connecting right there.
That rail was a high demand. Yes, you've jumped, but you're... Ooh! The prediction rockets. He's been hitting so much more rocket damage than GNiK has in these situations. Like, when those prediction rockets come through, it seems to be GNiK the one that's just falling for it every time. That rocket jump just to give himself as much distance as possible. We can't forget, GNiK, he knows he's behind and he knows he's running out of time. He's going to try and make something happen, hence the aggressiveness that you can see right now. Mega's about to spawn. Minimal damage and 2 misses. That's going to allow a free Mega pickup. And the rocket jump, he's heard it.
And that the cruelty on that rocket, though. GNiK lands a beautiful direct, and all it does is knock dooi on heavy.
You've got to be kidding me, Flea!
Throwing out the ha-ha-ha, nice, says GNiK. Even he is impressed. dooi living up to the name, right? The dooi orbs, they're back, and I think that many of the viewers are going to be delighted seeing them in action once again.
That's the kind of ha-ha-ha where you type ha-ha-ha with the stone coldest face expression you've ever had. That's a XD when you're really not XDing, are you?
Some tears.
Tears. Happy tears. Definitely happy tears. Happy tears of immense respect.
Yeah.
They're so good to see dooi playing again, man. I miss this guy so much!
Oh, no.
We missed you, dooi! Welcome back! Welcome back! With frags like that, it's like you never left. Here comes the initial damage again. The turret is going to waste some time, looking to get some extra damage. It's going to be the swap to the machine gun for the nail in the coffin. GNiK goes down again. 6-0. dooi just looking so good.
Yeah. A very confident play by dooi, shows a lot of game sense and knowledge as well, knowing exactly how low GNiK would have been, that he didn't need a rail or anything else, but just a basic machine gun would finish it off. dooi, 9 points of health, and GNiK, there we go, gets himself on the board. 2 minutes left, 5 frags. It's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible.
You have to demand perfection with this little time left, and that's the scary thing. It forces you to have to play so well. Those rockets.
Yeah.
Surgically placed from dooi now. 6 frag.
Oh no!
What is going on here, Flea? I don't even
thought
know.
it had just passed, but my timing must have been a little off.
Maybe GNiK thought that too.
Because GNiK ate it. And yeah, 1 minute 30 seconds left on the clock. GNiK, what are you gonna do? Probably not much.
We're reaching that point of no return.
Yeah.
If we haven't already reached it a fair while ago, the Mega's going to go, but dooi, no reason to overextend. Let him have it, who cares? Rail
Yeah,
damage.
I feel like that situation really says it all, right? GNiK was still just waiting at the Mega, like, dooi, are you gonna come pick it up so I can trap you? And dooi is just like, I'm gonna be over at Heavy Machine Gun, I'm gonna walk out of the room, see you later. I don't need this, so I'm gonna take the 2-0. I mean, it's pretty much a done deal at this point. GNiK pushing in aggressively though, doing some LG damage. dooi, I like the horizontal rocket jumps, just to get a little bit more speed going through the teleporter. We don't really see that many players do it, because of course, rocket jumping damages yourself, but Ranger, he's got that passive ability that keeps him safe from most of that damage.
GNiK having no choice but to just face roll his way into the rest of this. There's no way he's going to win this map. dooi, I mean, if he's going to finally miss an orb, it may as well be with 30 seconds to spare. What a map it's been. dooi's going to take this win now versus GNiK. 2-0, and the final map to come through, giving dooi an opportunity to get some all-important points, that's for sure, but... Oh no. Come on, dooi. Oh no. Oh, he misses the shot.
He misses the rail.
That would have been a nice bonus frag at the very end, but... That's it. That's all she wrote. 2-0 now. dooi playing exceptionally well. And GNiK having, I mean, no choice but to just respect it, for sure.
Yeah, and he still has 1 map left, right? So even though he's lost the series, he can still collect himself a nice number of points with this final map out of the 3. So come on, GNiK, it's lost, sure, but I mean, in the end, it's all about the points, right? 1 loss, 1 map loss means little in the war that is the Quake Pro League, right?
How many positions have we seen in Stage 1 where you hate to do it, but you look back in specific maps where it's like 1 frag in the difference, and you're like, wow, if I just got that one thing different, I would have won that map, and that 1 map I won would have actually meant, okay, well, maybe I'm not in as much danger, or maybe it would have given you a better seed or something similar. But to break that one down, it just came down to dooi, adopting once more that really just smart passive play. And there is fearlessness that comes with that. You can't be a naturally nervous player and play like that. You have to be very confident in your ability to make it work, especially against someone like GNiK. That first frag, a bit of a mishap. Perfectly executed by dooi, though. Absolutely surgical. And this was the double back as well. Catches him off guard. I really want to see that rail into orb. This was the second one. I had no information, had no idea where dooi was. That's just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time and melted away by the LG.
Yeah.
But when dooi only had the rail and the orb was available, it just creates this extra dynamic where you're so used to being able to calculate a fight going in your favor, and then, he has a rail, and that's all you're used to.
Yeah.
When Ranger only has a rail in that situation, you are so often not going to go, right, I have a huge risk of dying here, because you're used to it missing and then punishing him in the downtime. But,
and
wow.
Look at that. Actually a sizable lead when it comes to major items, right? 12 and 11 versus 7 and 6. GNiK, despite having most of the control for a very large portion of the map, it is dooi who gets the frags when it really counts, and then just essentially runs away with the lead and waits on his opponent to make the mistake.
If that map taught us anything, it's that control is not the be-all, end-all. The map is not set in stone just because you're collecting all the items.
Yeah.
GNiK, while maintaining control, it didn't take a genius to realize that dooi is clearly allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
You know you're against dooi, you know you're against this incredibly passive player, and if he's not around while you're collecting items, it's very likely because he's simply letting you do it.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because he was looking to spring traps. He was looking to catch GNiK in positions where he's not ready to get caught off guard. It was how the entire first frag happened. He used the jump pad, popped up with a rocket, rail to finish, that's it, dead. Instantly, before you can blink, the first frag was gone, while GNiK had all control.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that the rocket launcher was the most used weapon of both players really, I mean, it substantiates what you're saying, right? Lots of traps and lots of close quarters fight, with dooi mainly being the one to set up a trap, playing a slow game and waiting around the corner with the orb rocket combo at his disposal, and GNiK of course having to be prepared for that, but ultimately there's only so much you can do when your opponent forces you in these really close quarter fights.
So we're loading into the final map. The third map should be Corrupted Keep, Death Knight versus Strog and Pika. Pretty different variety of champions here.
Yeah,
First of all, dooi has the immediate burst of damage. Needs to get a little bit more weaponry though. The nail gun spawn's not going to quite be everything. SSG plus Flame Strike at close range. That can definitely make magic happen. But now he's got a rocket launcher.
Also worth pointing out, dooi actually managed to secure both of the major items of the spawn. He's got both Mega and Heavy to his name, and it's up to GNiK to get his stack up in order to rival that and find a good situation for a fight.
But you can see this already from dooi once more. He's not necessarily interested in running around the map. He has a stack and he has all the weapons he needs to make magic happen. Yep. He's got his Flame Strike, and now it's going to be just, you know, dooi being prepared to spring a trap and then maximize that burst.
Oh,
it's a little bit of damage. Yeah, it's going to give him that information to turn around with it. And in fact, the fire, there were no health bubbles nearby, so it gave dooi a lot of information. Here comes the opening rocket. Looks for another one. GNiK dies again. 1-0. dooi scores first blood once more on Corrupted Keep.
This could be going towards GNiK though, but both players so low, GNiK cannot find the nails he needs to get the frag. Heavy will be up in just a second, and this time though it looks like it will be going towards the Canadian player. He's got the better positioning and might be able to turn things around. I'm also very interested to see what GNiK will be able to do with that Peeker, right? Because this is by far, I feel like, the best map for Peeker, because there's no railgun, and railgun is the best tool to take out that little robot.
And there's no guarantee you're always going to have LG, because LG can be the forbidden fruit. Yep. Too tempting to go and take it. And then you get stuck between a rock and a hard place. No man's land, right? And here comes that 1-0 dooi. And hasn't moved in like 5 seconds.
GNiK is aware of that, right? It's like the sixth sense going off in the back of your head. You know all of a sudden, this is too quiet. Look at the damage.
Wow.
From both players.
Absolutely deleted. dooi trying to give himself as much cover as possible. Gets caught on spawn. GNiK gets the control thanks to the Mega. And now dooi not really able to spring too much of a trap.
I'm actually very surprised we didn't see the Peeker right there. That was the perfect situation. I feel like you just send the robot up and get that frag for you, but
especially with the nail guns all we had.
Yeah.
So either that, maybe GNiK's just trying to save it. Confident in his LG clearly, as he's going to melt dooi. And I feel like for the first time, take the lead. I think this is the first time we've really seen GNiK enforce anything positive for himself. That is going to be a painful rocket to get hit by dooi. Not interested in picking a shot just yet. Needs to try and go towards the Heavy, but it looks like GNiK might have similar ideas. Yeah, trying to keep his exit clear. He's going to run away. Gets some great damage on the rocket to begin with. Gets clipped on the way down. dooi. Half making the chase, but now he's going to disengage once more.
I feel like dooi actually made a significant mistake right there, trying to chase into the Heavy nail gun room, because GNiK just ran around the other side and actually stole Heavy right under his nose. So dooi overextending a little bit, putting himself in too aggressive of a situation, and it allowed GNiK to run away with one of the coveted major items.
There's going to be a massive element of mobility changing up these two champions. Strog is going to have that instant speed. Death Knight, just one of the least mobile champions in the entire game, basically. There are going to be elements like that where GNiK is kind of just running rings around dooi and going through any avenue that he wants to go, whereas dooi, it takes him a little bit longer to reach certain points, so running away might be a little bit harder. Avoiding getting cut off might be a lot harder too, especially when your Flame strikes down. You haven't got the threat of that they have to respect, so it might make them second guess going around a corner. Oh no, self-damage for days. That one hurt.
dooi does get out of that room alive though, and he must have around 5 points of health at this point. Gets it up to around 30, I believe, but still not healthy at all. And GNiK, looking at that small armor, he wants it, not for his own sake, but just to deny dooi's, but that won't happen just yet. Gonna get himself a little bit of rocket ammo. And he's actually going to go really aggressive. The rocket jump. dooi is going to escape into the Mega Room. GNiK, is he going to be able to chase down his opponent?
Yeah,
looks like he is going to play a more defensive game. Just going to stick to the items and not overextend.
There's a scary hallway to go through. He's going through it now because he knows the risk of getting hit by those defensive rockets just massively goes down. Yeah. And it is wonderful patience from GNiK. Just not giving up anything unnecessarily. There's no need to. You've got a lead. You've got clearly control now, as that heavy's going to spawn. I feel like dooi tries to fight for it. doi's being very careful to try and get some of that opening damage. The problem is that he's actually eating the same damage in return, so ultimately nothing was really gained. Here comes the fight. Deleted again, dooi. I do fear that maybe this could be just how the general map goes. GNiK has been maintaining a stack the entire time, and doi's just completely unable to really put a dent in it.
Nice little juke from dooi right there, going on the bounce pad and right back down. GNiK not expecting that at all. Mega will be his prize for that engagement, but dooi not even looking that bad himself, especially when he's going to start landing rockets like that. Race for the heavy. dooi gets the better positioning, but just the speed of that crouch slide just slides on by, and dooi, the flames actually landing behind GNiK, not really doing any damage at all. That's unfortunate for dooi. And now GNiK getting ready to set up for that next Mega Health. And what can dooi do? This is probably not the worst moment to start a fight, because he has a decent stack, at least comparable to GNiK's.
But common to what's been happening the entire course of the map, the second dooi gets some opening damage, GNiK returns the favor immediately.
Yeah.
With the same amount. As long as GNiK's maintaining a larger stack, we're pretty much hitting that even ground again where dooi can't fight. I mean, he can't fight with the stack that he's on right now. If he sticks around, he's going to be mincemeat. He's looking to retreat now, but the scary thing is that it's just taking a lot of time to do this. Now GNiK looking to really put that chokehold on. He's looking for all possible escape options. At the same time, dooi just completely unable to try and fight for one of these major pickups. The second he does, he's just going to absolutely accept death.
And I really feel like this is a map that favors GNiK more than the previous ones that we've seen, because there's just so little room to play defensively, right? There's constant aggression, and once one player gets that frag and they're in a good position with a good stack and the weapons they need, they can really start snowballing and getting frags on the opponent basically a moment after they walk out of their spawn. So that's a lot more difficult for dooi to just, you know, play the passive game that we've seen him perform in the last two maps.
We haven't seen Pika at all, really. He just
Actually
hasn't been
not.
needed. Point blank, the trap gets sprung. Might potentially be an opportunity to pop it now. He's got the stack, but is it too much of a risk? Gets some damage. Confident in his ability without it. Again, using Pika here would be quite a risk, given the fact that he's so weak. Yeah, dooi did a wonderful job. I like the reaction. Using the burst damage of the Flame Strike and the rocket combined to just melt away the stack that GNiK was sitting on. Yeah, no, plan B, abort. Don't bother.
It was a very brief display of the peeker, but oh, the midi comes out. Can GNiK get away? Excellent defensive rockets, heavy up in a few seconds. Who will get the better positioning? It will be GNiK. And that final rocket, that will make dooi rethink his approach. Actually, no! dooi, with next to no health to his name, still pushes in as GNiK kind of makes a mistake to go for the health bubbles first.
I feel like GNiK just was not expecting dooi to do that too. It went completely against the grain of how you're familiar with dooi approaching this game mode in general. If he's that weak and he's been famous for playing passive, you're not going to expect him to just jump into heavy like that. It's unheard of.
Yeah. On the other hand, there are only 2 minutes left on this map, and there's a 3 frag deficit that dooi is looking at as he takes another rocket to the face. But yeah, 2 minutes, not a lot of time to work with at all. He really has to step it up and find some frags, or he will lose this final map as well. Oh, that's so bad for GNiK.
But really good news for GNiK, because he trades it out. All that really did was waste about 30 seconds. dooi fresh off the spawn. He's able to get to the weapons first.
Doesn't take the rocket launcher though.
I wonder if it was because the objective was to go around this side anyway, head him off. But GNiK, as long as he's just playing this game of runaway, he's going to be able to waste a decent amount of time and just win the game on that pretty easily so far. And
yeah,
there has been a game of mobility. By the time the fights finally break out, the Flame Strike's not really doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, that really was a bit of an unfortunate situation right there for GNiK. And both players, I feel like neither is really using the ability that effectively, right? We've seen 2 peekers show up,
I think that's why the game has been mobility over all else, because that's just something that's naturally a part of Strog's moveset. It's just how they work. But it's worked wonders for GNiK, as it looks like he should be able to make this a 2-1. So he's lost the series overall, but fortunately, any points are better than no points. dooi is going to chase this down, but once more hasn't got the stack. GNiK being way out stacking him is a constant problem he's had throughout the entire course of this map. And that rocket just hurts. That's just a bit of a demoralizing one, if anything. dooi gets deleted again. And this should absolutely be a map win for GNiK, making it 2-1. But the win is still going to go to dooi.
Yeah, and I think that, GNiK is going to be happy with that, right? This is his first map, or first matchup rather, on the online stage, or stage 2 rather, of the Quake Pro League. And, you know, can be a little bit demotivating, right? Going into your first official stage and then losing 3-0 in your very first matchup. So I think he's at least going to not be too distressed since he did manage to claim that final map.
And you have to look at how those maps went too. The second we had extra space and room for dooi to do his thing, and in turn actually, not just information for GNiK, but I think maybe information for everyone else that still has to fight dooi in the Pro League. Because we've just clearly seen that give dooi space, and he's able to really maximize the way he approaches this game mode, which is crazy slow, very, very passive, and he waits for his moment.
Yeah.
He doesn't force anything. In Corrupted Keep, you're kind of forced to do stuff that you're maybe not going to otherwise be that comfortable in. And I will admit, I don't think the Death Knight pick helped. You can understand why Death Knight was picked for this, because if he's able to spring that trap and he combines Rocket Launch up close with Flame Strike, it's burst that will absolutely reward your playstyle if you can spring a trap. But GNiK was just so crazy fast, and I think just onto him at this point, that it was very rare that dooi was in a position to make that happen. He constantly had no stack. He was getting crazy outsped by the speed of Strog's crouch slide. And that was basically all she wrote. So now we're going to kind of go into future weeks knowing that give dooi space to do what he wants to do, he has a great time. Pick a map that potentially chokes him into a position where he can't do that, he has a harder time doing that.
And also something that we really haven't been talking about that much, just about the points. dooi and GNiK, they're both, they're placed 19th and 20th, right? Both the new players coming into the NA scene. So this final map win from GNiK, that's the difference of an 8 for the other player and 4 to you, or 16 to the other and 0 to you. So that's a huge difference in the overall rankings, because both of these players are at a pretty significant risk of relegation at the end.
If there's a position where you can take any kind of joy from it, GNiK got exactly what he was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's just, for me, we just treat that series as straight up information. We got a perfect look over how dooi approaches duel. You know, we see slow-paced players, but not quite with the edge that dooi has.
Yeah.
They're all different styles, and I guess that's the wonderful thing about Quake, isn't it? Is that it's the same game mode, but you can play it in so many different ways, and now the champions exist. dooi clearly puts that into his fullest advantage. You know, the Ranger helped that majorly in Molten. Nyx allowed the one frag game in Blood Covenant. And we said it before, this is a player that just relishes Quake Champions as its own specific game, and he plays it accordingly.
Yeah.
And it's, welcome back, dooi. It's good to see you, man.
And looking at the map stats, or the match stats rather, so this is the total of the entire match that we have seen, with damage being averaged out, I believe. But if you look at the major item pickups, GNiK by far getting more megas, by far getting the most heavies as well. It's just dooi getting more of the small armors, and that really just shows that GNiK was the one who was in control for most of the series. He was the one cycling mega, cycling heavy, but just dooi playing that slow game, doing the strategic damage where it mattered, and then capitalizing off of that and getting the frags before resuming his slow play is what got him the win.
We're so used to seeing players win through control alone. And it's almost like another day at the office where it's player maintains control, player has massive stack, player hits opening damage and can then press the advantage, forces opponent into a weird position they can't really survive in. They just play their cards right, bang, 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 use the combination of weapons properly, done. And you kind of just chain that, right? Just dooi approaches it in a way that we don't really see all that often. And the Outlaw, right? The wild card, man's living up to his name. Something that you just don't fully expect. And I'm very excited to see the weeks progress, and we can see the evolution of both how dooi continues to approach this game mode, and also, more interestingly to me, how the other players in the Americas, I think, adapt to that. Because when you're going up against dooi, you need to be ready for that. And if you're not, he's gonna lame you out the entire game. And there's nothing you can do if you're not ready. Yeah,
but definitely true. This isn't something that we've really seen so far, right? There's a few players like Base in EU and Razy who tends to play aggressively, but when he needs to just completely lock down everything. But we really don't have a player other than dooi that just goes, you know what? from the very first second onwards, I'm going to play extremely passively and defensively for an entire map if I have to. So that's a very interesting addition to just the meta of the players, if you want to call it that.
So that was series number 3. We're just about to hit the halfway point of tonight's entertainment as we're going into series number 4. This is week number 2 of stage 2 of the Quake Pro League. See you in a few minutes' time and take care.